Epstein was hiding in plain sight. We all knew about him. We all knew what he was doing. We all knew what he was doing. We all knew what he was doing. But we had no one that was, legal aspect that would go after him. They were afraid of him. For whatever reason, they were afraid of him.
Because as you told me, jails are sometimes dangerous, and Jeffrey Epstein died in jail. Do you believe that he committed suicide? Because many don't.
No, he didn't. I don't believe he did. I believe that he was murdered.
What's up, Insta fam? This is part 7 where we're going over Epstein in my series Eyes Wide Open that I created to expose what I believe is a truth to the masses and to remind you all to question everything. So let's start from the beginning. Epstein began his professional career in 1974 working for Dalton High School as a mathematics and physics teacher, despite lacking a college degree. After dismissal from the school in 1976, he entered the finance and banking sector, working for Bear Stearns in various roles before starting his own firm. He founded his own investment company, where he worked for governments to help them recover embezzled funds, and also worked for people who had embezzled funds. He told friends at the time that he worked as an intelligence agent. One fact that could point this to be true is that he was in possession of an Australian passport with his photo on it, but with a different name. Which relates back to one of his later cases in life when a U.S. district attorney stated that he was initially told to leave Epstein's case alone because he was part of intelligence. After growing his elite circle, he eventually became a rich bachelor living in New York City. In March 2005, police began to investigate Epstein after a family of a 14-year-old girl said that she was molested at his mansion. Multiple underage girls told police that Epstein hired them to give him sexual massages. In May 2006, police charged Epstein with multiple counts of unlawful sex with a minor. The country's top prosecutor, state attorney Barry Krischer, takes unusual steps to send this case to the grand jury. In June 2006, grand jury only hears from one accuser and indicts Epstein on one count of solicitation of prostitution. Accusations from other victims, many who were minors, were not reflected in the indictment. In July 2006, Palm Beach police leaders slammed Krischer for giving Epstein special treatment. The FBI opens a federal investigation that involves multiple accusers in Florida, New York, and elsewhere in the United States. Federal prosecutors prepare an indictment against Epstein, but for a year, the financier's lawyers engaged in talks with the U.S. Attorney in Miami, Alexander 𝐒𝐓𝐇𝐄𝐑, about a plea bargain that would allow Epstein to avoid federal prosecution. Epstein's lawyers argue that his accusers are unreliable witnesses. Epstein pleaded guilty to one count of soliciting prostitution and one count of soliciting prostitution from a minor. He was sentenced to 18 months in jail, a year of community service, and is registered as a sex offender. Under a secret arrangement, the U.S. Attorney's Office agreed not to prosecute Epstein for federal crimes. Epstein served most of his sentence in a work-release program that allowed him to leave the jail during the day to go to his office and return to his cell at night. Epstein is released from jail. For the next decade, multiple women who say they are Epstein's victims wage a legal fight to get his federal non-prosecution agreement voided and hold him and others liable for the abuse. Virginia Giuffre says that Epstein and then-girlfriend Ghislaine Maxwell set up sexual encounters with high-profile individuals starting when she was 17. This included royalty, politicians, academics, businessmen, and others. In July 2019, Epstein was arrested, and in August 2019, guards found Epstein dead in his cell, concluded that he had died by suicide. I personally don't believe Epstein killed himself. There are way too many coincidences surrounding the fact. The cameras just happened to be malfunctioning that night. The prison guards just happened to not be around or sleeping. How convenient. Not even his own brother believes that he committed suicide. He was interviewed by Tucker Carlson, which you guys must watch. It's about 25 minutes long, but I'm going to cut out some parts and I'm going to show you guys.
Do you think your brother killed himself?
When I first heard he was dead from suicide, I had no reason to doubt it, so I accepted that. But then after the autopsy and after Bill Barr made that asinine statement, I said, this was not a suicide.
But when you first heard the news, you thought it was a possibility that he killed himself.
Yeah, I accepted it as a fact.
When did you start to think that he did not kill himself?
Well, after the autopsy and both pathologists, the city pathologist and Dr. It looks more like a homicide.
But having spoken to his lawyers and people whom he communicated with from jail, did anybody say that he seemed suicidal?
No, everybody was shocked that it was a suicide. Nobody thought he was going to kill himself. Nobody thought he would do that. I heard Barr's statement that he said he personally saw the videotape and he concluded it was a suicide because nobody went in or out. That's when it hit me that he's covering this up, because there's two sort of fallacies in that. One, I thought, why is the Attorney General of the United States, who I imagine to be a busy guy, why is he personally watching the videotape? Couldn't he have two people in his office watch the videotape and say, hey, Bill, nobody went in or out? You know, wouldn't that suffice? And two, to assume that somebody could get to that door, go inside, you know, kill somebody, get out completely undetected is just ridiculous, because I believe there are 6 levels of security before you get to that door. So to assume that somebody could do it that way is crazy. And any third-rate investigator will tell you that, you know, there was anywhere from 7 to 14 people on the other side of that door, on the tier, that could have killed somebody. And I had been told from another source, I've been getting a lot of information from all sources, that cell doors were left unlocked that night. I don't know how many cell doors or whose cell doors, but if cell doors were left unlocked, then somebody could have went into Jeff's cell, killed him, went back into their cell, undetected. Now, in the Justice Department report, it says that from 3 cells, you could see Jeff's cell door. But if you look at the photographs of the tier, there's tiny windows in the cell doors. So in order to see Jeff's cell door from another cell, you'd have to be standing at that window inside the other cells in the middle of the night looking towards Jeff's cell. And if somebody crept low beneath the height of that window, you wouldn't see them. So the fact that, you know, to say that he could be seen from 3 other cells and they didn't see anything, well, chances are the other prisoners were sleeping in those cells if they had nothing to do with it. So again, it's just like a cover-up line.
Right. So in other words, the Attorney General said that nobody moved on to the cell block according to the videotape, but that is irrelevant because if your brother was murdered, he was almost certainly murdered by someone who was already on the cell block.
Exactly.
Right.
Epstein was a smart individual. He made sure to not be in the videos where he recorded other high political or profiled people. Do you guys remember Rachel Chandler, who posted the channels from his island on her Instagram? He had dirt on so many different people. If they wanted to cut a deal with him, why wouldn't certain people want him dead?
Ransom also confirmed that Epstein kept videotapes of high-profile men, underage girls, as sexual blackmail. She says she saw some of those sex tapes herself, explaining, quote, when my friend had sexual intercourse with blank and blank, sex tapes were in fact filmed on each occasion by Jeffrey. She also said Epstein was clever. He made sure he wasn't in the video, so it couldn't have been used against him. Ransom says she got her hands on one of those videos and backed it up on, you know, those little thumb drives and sent them to different locations in Europe because she's scared someone from Epstein's inner circle still could get her. So if Sarah has the videos, the FBI has to have them too, right? Yet, the only one that's been arrested is the madam. There's all these high-profile guys on these videos, right? Committing statutory rape, right? So how come nothing's come from that? Something doesn't add up here. We know the FBI let Epstein get away with abuse for over a decade. They even used him as an informant. He helped them with a Bear Stearns investigation.
And you have to take into fact that all of these people around him mysteriously died. You have Brunel, who was a major facilitator of his sex trafficking activities, particularly when it came to the modeling industry, who ended up dead in his prison cell of an apparent suicide. And then you have Mark Middleton, who had signed Epstein into the White House 7 of the 17 times that he visited the residence. He was found with a gunshot wound to the chest and an extension cord around his neck, where they found ammo but no weapon, and declared a suicide. And then you have Carolyn, who was an Epstein survivor who died of an apparent overdose. And then you have the son of Esther Salas.
The judge's son is shot and killed, and her husband is left in critical condition. This shooting comes just days after Salas was assigned to work a case linked to Jeffrey Epstein. A gunman arrived at the front door of this house. The door was opened by the son of this judge, Judge Esther Salas, and the gunman basically was wearing a FedEx uniform. Not sure if it was a disguise or if he actually worked for FedEx, but then opened fire, killing the son and injuring the federal judge's husband.
Investigators say Judge Salas was in the basement at the time of the shooting. She's the first Latina to serve on the federal bench in New Jersey, presiding over several high-profile trials, including the one of former Real Housewives of New Jersey star Teresa Giudice. But officials overnight said a motive remained unclear. They say the judge has received threats in the past, but nothing recently.
The judge had just recently presided over a lawsuit brought by Deutsche Bank investors that claimed that the company failed to monitor high-risk clients properly, including convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. And you can bet today that federal officials are going over all their cases to see if there's some kind of connection.
This was not a crime of opportunity. This was a premeditated attack. Think about how brazen this attack was. You could have attacked the judge or her husband or the son at any location. This attacker went right to the front door. The fact that this was done in broad daylight, to me, is an indicator that the attacker had no fear of being caught.
She was involved with the sentencing of a very notorious gang member in Newark, and most recently she was handed the case that involved Deutsche Bank and its handling of high-risk clients, including Jeffrey Epstein.
Now you're going to say, okay, but that would involve a lot of governments. Yeah, it would. But guess what happened with Robert Maxwell? I mean, it was the same thing. It was concluded also that he was part of intelligence, and his own daughter, Ghislaine Maxwell, believes that the Israeli intelligence killed him. So is it possible? It's highly possible. In fact, I believe it to be the truth of the matter. It's either that or he is still out there somewhere under a different name with a different disguise. It is speculated that Robert Maxwell fell over into the ocean while urinating on his yacht.
Breaking news this hour, officials say multimillionaire Jeffrey Epstein has taken his own life.
The 66-year-old was supposed to be checked on by guards every 30 minutes since he was taken off suicide watch late July, and that did not happen on the night of his death. Epstein was also supposed to be housed with a cellmate and not left alone, but he was left alone.
Video of the cell exterior where Epstein first tried to end his life was sent to federal investigators and restored last week. But on Thursday, prosecutors said it's the wrong video. In a letter, federal prosecutors said the jail inadvertently preserved video from the wrong tier at the jail. And as a result, video from outside the defendant's cell no longer exists.
If all of that isn't crazy enough to you, they literally show you a picture of him on his deathbed where his nose looks completely different than what it usually looks like. And then you have Disney that literally sent kids for years on snorkeling trips to Little St. James Island. Jeffrey Epstein had some really weird art going on in his home. So you have the picture of Bill Clinton in a blue dress, which a lot of people are saying it's Monica Lewinsky's dress, and it's hanging up in his home alongside with the George Bush picture with the towers. It's like he had dirt on all of these people. Why else would they want him dead? I believe that he was either killed or that he is still alive somewhere because he was part of intelligence. At least that's what I believe. And if we look at the fact that Ghislaine Maxwell was actually introduced to Epstein from her father, Robert Maxwell, who also mysteriously died, was definitely connected to the Mossad intelligence agency. And then you have her sister, Isabel. She was a director of the Israel Venture Network and built up their social entrepreneur program in Israel from 2004 to 2010. So when you start to put all of these pieces of the puzzle together, things start to look a lot more clear. The truth is always there. You just have to dig for it, or you can just follow me. In part 8, we're going to be going over Diddy, so stay tuned. Don't forget to like, follow, comment, hit my notification button so you don't miss anything. Share with everybody that you know, repost, follow all my other social media, and stay awake, my friends.